Good morning. Welcome back to In the Word. We're in our last reading for the life of Jesus, his return and establishment of his kingdom on earth. We'll end there. We'll be taking a kind of a break until the 5th of April, and then I'll start a series that'll go Monday through Friday that'll cover all chapter a day from Romans through Revelation. So that will be a reading goal starting in April. If we stick with that schedule, we'll finish the epistles and the book of Revelation in 6 months. So it'll be a 6-month reading plan from Romans through Revelation. So I'm excited about that, excited for you guys to get into it, look a little bit more closely, and get into the Word every day. Also, I'm recording this on the 24th of March, 2021. And if you're in the Fort Collins area or want to take a drive over to Fort Collins, I'll be speaking tonight at the Fort Collins Bible Church on the very important topic of prayer. And we'll be learning from the Apostle Paul how important prayer is for the unity, community, and fellowship among believers. So we'll be looking at that tonight. For today, though, we're looking at Jesus' return and the establishment of his kingdom in 2 sections of Scripture, Matthew 25, verses 31 through 46, and in Revelation 20, verses 1 through 6. So when you read through Matthew 25 later today, or this morning, I want you to notice that in verse 31 of Matthew 25, is first the return of Jesus. So Jesus is speaking to a Jewish audience here. He's speaking to his disciples. He's telling them what is going to happen from a Jewish perspective when he returns. That whole section, the Olivet Discourse, is describing from not from the church's perspective, but from a Jewish perspective, what's going to happen. That Jesus will return, and then in verses 32 through 39, we see the reward of the nations. So this section is called the judgment of the nations. 31 is his return. 32 through 39 is his reward. So how does this fit into the end times? In Revelation chapter 6 through 19, we see this period of tribulation that culminates in the battle, what they call the Battle of Armageddon. I think it's actually an extended campaign, with the last battle being fought at the end of chapter 19. Then Jesus' return, so at the beginning of chapter 20. So this section of Matthew is right at the beginning, right at Jesus' return. There's a gap of about 75 days before the kingdom is established. This may be happening in that gap, or it might happen right at the beginning of his kingdom. So he's judging the nations here, and he's going to reward the nations based on their relationship of what Jesus calls my brothers at the end of verse 39 there, and also at the end of verse 41. He judges the nations on the basis of what they've done to my brothers. This brings us back to the Abrahamic covenant in Genesis 12, verse 3, where those who curse you, I will curse, and those who bless you, I will bless. Well, we see the nations are being judged. The people are being judged on the basis of their relationship to the people of Israel, Jesus' brothers, during the time of tribulation. If they offered Jesus' brothers shelter and support and help and visited them in jail and clothed them, because those who resist the dragon and the beast will not get the mark of the beast and will be precluded from any economic transactions. The result is that they'll have to be supported by the people of the earth, and that's how Jesus is judging them here. So those who have been in a right relationship with Israel will in fact be rewarded, and that's what we see here. They are brought into the kingdom. This is what happens during the tribulation, where the righteous Gentiles are revealed, and they are brought into the kingdom, Jesus' kingdom. They come in and enter. Not so in verses 40 and 41. These are the Gentile people who did not have a good relationship or did not support the people of God during the tribulation period, and they will receive their retribution. So verse 31 is the reward, 32 through 39, 31 is the return, 32 through 39 is the reward of the nations, and 40 and 41 are the retribution to the nations for what they've done. We go to Revelation chapter 20 then. What we see is other events at the beginning of Jesus' millennial reign. We call that millennial because the word millennia is Latin for 1,000, and you'll see here that in verses 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, and 7, over and over, 1,000 years is mentioned 6 times by my count in these few verses here, that the length of Jesus' reign is identified as 1,000 years. Basically, there's 3 main views on this beginning of his kingdom. There's an amillennial view, that is, there being a negative. There is no millennium. It's just figurative. The 1,000 years are symbolic for a long period of time. Amillennialists believe that. They believe that this binding of Satan that happens in verses 1 through 3 has happened at Jesus' crucifixion, that Satan has been bound and that he's on a short leash now and prevented from being active in the earth. And then the promises that God had made to his people, to Israel, promises for land and for offspring and for blessing, are being spiritually realized in the church. So an amillennialist would say that there is no reward of land promised to Israel any longer. They forfeited that, and instead that belongs to the church and is being spiritually realized now. So according to an amillennialist, there is no literal kingdom. It's just figurative, and we are living now in this period where Jesus reigns. Postmillennialists, they believe that Jesus will come back after the millennium. So an amillennialist doesn't believe that there is a millennium, just a long period of time. Postmillennialists would agree that the 1,000 years is just symbolic of a long period of time, and that Jesus comes back at the end of that long period of time. In the meantime, the gospel is spreading over the whole earth and having a positive impact on the earth, and that's going to increase and increase more and more until Jesus' returns. Right now, what's happening is that Jesus is somehow spiritually reigning in the hearts and minds of people, so that's where they get the reign of Jesus that Revelation 20 talks about as being spiritually fulfilled, not literally fulfilled, and that when Jesus comes back at the end of this long period of time, then he will establish his eternal state on earth. Premillennialism, on the other hand, says that Jesus will return at the beginning of the 1,000 years. So, amillennialist, 1,000 years is just a long period of time. There's not really going to be a reign of Jesus. Postmillennialist is 1,000 years is a long period of time. Jesus comes back at the end and establishes his kingdom after the gospel is spread. Premillennialists say that Jesus will come at the beginning of his 1,000-year reign. He'll establish his kingdom, and then he'll reign on the earth for 1,000 years. Premillennialists, and I would count myself among premillennialists, they don't see a kingdom now. They see rather that Jesus' kingdom will be established in the future on the earth. Painting with broad brush here, there's exceptions in each camp, but that's the main thrust of the amillennialist, the postmillennialist, and the premillennialist. So I think that the natural reading of Genesis or Revelation 20 indicates that that Satan is first bound in verses 1 through 3 at the beginning of Jesus' millennial reign, his 1,000 years. And then we see in verse 4, souls are released from death. So these are the people that died during the tribulation. They are raised to new life. This is the first resurrection, implying there'll be a second. And there are thrones that are set up. So saints will reign in some sense with Jesus. We know that Jesus promised the apostles that they would reign on thrones over his kingdom when he returned. Believers that overcome during the tribulation are promised to reign with Christ, and church age believers will reign. So there'll be some kind of joint delegated reign under Jesus's theocratic in Jesus' theocratic kingdom. So 1 through 3, Satan is bound. Verse 4, souls are released. And verses 5 and 6, the second death is foretold. So this is the death that unbelievers will suffer at the end of the millennium. So I think, again, I think that this is a natural reading of Revelation 20. You don't have to spiritualize anything. You could take it literally. Also, the reign of Jesus is foretold. Some people would say that, well, this is the only place in the Bible that this is described. Actually, the only thing that's added here, the only details that we haven't had before, is that the kingdom is 1,000 years. The fact that there is a kingdom, that Jesus will reign, was identified in Isaiah chapter 2, verse 3, Daniel chapter 7, verse 14, and in Zechariah 14:9. So those are some cross-references that you can look at. Isaiah 2, verse 3, Daniel 7, verse 14, and Zechariah 14:9. It's also a time that there's going to be great righteousness on the earth while Jesus is reigning here. We see that in Isaiah 11, verses 3 through 5. A time of great peace on the earth, back to Isaiah chapter 2, verse 4. And then a period of great fecundity on the earth, or great productivity of the earth during this time. Isaiah 35, verses 1 through 10. So brothers and sisters, that is what's lying in our future. That is what is coming, is Jesus' righteous reign and rule on the earth. The nations will be judged. Some will go to punishment, others into the kingdom. The kingdom will be established, and Jesus will reign on the earth for 1,000 years. And they'll have the righteousness and social justice that everyone longs for. I mean, even today, everyone's longing for justice. We're longing for righteousness to prevail. It doesn't seem like it's going to happen, but this could be, Jesus could come for his church at any time. And then the completion of the events of Revelation 6 through 19, and then Jesus' reign. So end times are always presented in the Bible as a motivation to holy, sacred, set apart sanctification. So I pray, brothers and sisters, that you and I both would live in light of his coming, live lives that are set apart from the world around us, set apart from even our own flesh that rebels against us and leads us to sin sometimes. We would repent, and from the devil himself, who is alive and active right now and raging in the earth. So God bless you, brothers and sisters. And again, if you're in the Fort Collins area, I'd love to see you tonight. Fort Collins Bible Church at 7:30 p.m. It'll also be live streamed on their website and available on their YouTube channel. So God bless you, brothers and sisters. Enjoy a brief hiatus, and we'll be starting again on the 5th of April, Romans through Revelation. God bless you.